All right, good morning and welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon, and I am Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
And today, Rohi, we are talking about firearms. Do we need them? Yeah, exactly.
So scary.
Do we need them here in our society? And we're going to dive deep into that, only because I know we may have some gun enthusiasts. We have people that certainly have their right based on the Constitution. And others that do it for food preservation, hunting, hobby, what have you. But if you're one of those that fits into one of those categories, please chime in, give us your comments. The question again is, do we need firearms in our society?
Yeah.
And I know you went back here, but you are a gun store, right?
Well, that's always my joke when people say, well, don't you like guns? And I always tell them, no, I hate guns. I just sell them, And it's always funny comment because they're like, what? I'm joking, obviously.
I wouldn't have a business if I wasn't, right? You have to have a sense of humor in the gun industry.
You do.
Yeah.
Well, so I know that the last couple times I've been going to the AI to kind of see what it thinks here too. So just to give you where all this AI is believing is that obviously there's it's saying for self-defense, recreational law enforcement, food preservation, protection of rights, which is kind of interesting. Consideration of risk, obviously, and then the legal context. So I mean, it's guns in America, for one. It's always, I guess, when you look at Americans, we always feel like we're the only country that has guns as individuals. And it's really surprising when you find out, no, many countries around the world allow their individuals to have firearms, and they have a process. And some are a little better, some a little worse, places like South Africa. I remember I was following a guy, and they were talking about, he was talking about the process. It's like a 6-month process, and it's very lengthy, but you can get guns, and you can own guns just like we do here in America. They have the rights. So that's always, I think, a good context, because you see a lot of people that are on the other side that are saying, like, look, you shouldn't have guns. You shouldn't have modern guns. We should basically still have, like, the black powder, flintlock kind of rifles, because that's what what was written when the Constitution was there. So there's a lot of those arguments of not just should we be able to have guns, but what guns we should be able to also have in that context.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up, because in today's modern society, where you see, and again, we have the urban areas, and then we have rural areas, and then we have very remote areas that are up in certain areas that may require a firearm to preserve food, hunt and what have you. But in our modern society, big cities, for example, is there a need for guns? And more so, I think what you see around in a lot of these cities is you see crime waves. And that should be the first thing that triggers, well, I need to own a firearm to protect myself. Are there other means aside from firearms that you can control the crime wave? And what I mean by that, more specifically, with gun violence.
Yeah. And that's, so, when we teach our classes for the concealed carry, that's a topic that we cover. It's basically alternative methods besides the firearm. And part of that discussion is just to get people programmed to understand that you can't just say, hey, I have a gun, and that's going to be my end all in all circumstances. Because again, because of legal reasons, you may get into a predicament where you can't use that gun because, maybe it doesn't rise to that level. And if all you said is, I got the gun, then you're going to find yourself essentially unarmed, because you can't use it, and there's no other alternatives there. So we start talking about things like less lethal. So you got like the burn-up pistols or rifles, pepper spray, but the real issue with a lot of those, like even the tasers and stun guns, is they're intended for one, usually a more one-time use. So it's great if it's a one-person attacker and they happen to be within the right distance, and they're not wearing a lot of clothing, then those things can work. But beyond that, if you have, like where we're seeing now, 3, 4, 5 people coming into your home, busting in, those things don't work, And I think that's where that barrier of a firearm kicks in, because now most modern firearms are 10-round magazines. So you got at least 10 potential things to throw at them that are definitely more viable, I guess I could say. I mean, I'm not saying lethal, but just that they can do more than, say, pepper spray would do. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I certainly believe that if you are utilizing that firearm for, again, there are people that have hobby that enjoy the game of getting out there, shooting and hunting, recreation, and don't have any intended purposes to try to hurt someone other than, what they use it for specifically, right? Like I said, food preservation.
Yeah.
Or gaming to some degree. You have shotgun. You have different types of firearms.
Yeah.
But I think what people, what they're more in tune to is, gun violence. Because gun violence certainly puts that fear in that person and saying, well, shoot, the crime is up in gun violence. So therefore, I need to protect me and my family. I need to go get me a gun.
Yeah.
And when you go get that gun and you go through these classes, you come to find out that, man, using this gun isn't as easy as it was on the video games. Actually, I have to think it through before and that's, I think in a moment of, I have to react very quickly, and not having that type of mentality, then you're probably going to utilize it in a way that could potentially be fatal. But if it could be prevented by looking at the signs, making yourself aware of what the situation is, then you probably say, well, I'm better off walking away from this. There is really no need for me to utilize and harm this individual, and walk away. If that person, though, acts in a different way, then I think you have the training to know whether or not you're going to be in harm, right?
Yeah, and again, and that's kind of where we get a lot of our students, and it's always, again, that's our internal joke, is when we get to the part where we want to bring up like circumstances or situational stuff, and they'll start off with like, there's 3 guys and they got my wife, and it's like, can I shoot him now? And we're going like, well, wait a minute. Why did there be 3 guys in the house? Or why are you in that position? And we try to get them to understand, like, let's roll it back to, like you're saying, like, step 1, when did you see them? Okay, they busted in your house. How did they get to the door? Is the door reinforced? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of steps that failed before you got to the 3 guys holding your wife, and now you want to shoot them, right? So that's the thing we're really trying to break with people, is that you can't just focus on that last point. We have to say, where were all the failures along the way, and how could we prevent those? And now we didn't have to get to using the gun. Maybe because we reinforced the doors, it took them a lot longer to break in, so it gave us enough time to get to a safer place, Or, like I said, if it's about being in public, maybe it was just that we have a plan, we're more aware. I saw the guys coming from like a block away, and we just knew to run and hide. Like, there's little things like that to where we haven't even talked about the gun yet. Like, we're way over here. The gun is kind of like that. I failed all the way along the way. Now, yes, there are definitely circumstances where somebody could just pop up and it's right on top. You don't really have that opportunity. But if you look at a lot of the videos, there were plenty of opportunities of escape or other means that were available that just weren't taken.
Didn't have to lead to that last resort.
No, it did not.
But it's funny, because in our minds, I think that seed has been planted there to think that these are the situations we're going to encounter when it comes to why I should purchase a gun, right? We see a lot of media, a lot of movies, we play a lot of video games, and for some reason we draw up these scenarios where, yes, my wife, 3 guys, they're bad guys, and I'm left. I got a 9mm, and I don't know what to do with it. I'm gonna have to go all out, right? I'm John Wayne style. Yeah. But and that's kind of what drives people sometimes to believe that, because it's funny how I listen to some folks and say, well, I don't know if with all this stuff that's happening right now with the world. And I go, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening with this small little country that's way out there. And somehow it's going to affect you here sometime, the rural areas of Madera County, right? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I would think that if I was in their shoes and now planning strategic ways of dismantling a country, it wouldn't be starting in these remote areas. It would be with, obviously, the economic portion of it, military, air bases and all that stuff, right? I think that's what be. But again, I guess listening to all these things, this hype, it does make you concerned, and you're alert, and you think that maybe I need to. I need to be armed.
Yeah.
And the reason why we bring this up is because, you know, we talk about food preservation right now, right? And through COVID, I think you saw a ramp up in people buying guns because they saw this thing of a pandemic being okay. If this is anything like it was maybe close to 100 years ago, then there could be famine. There could be a shortfall in food supply.
Yeah.
So then I need to go buy, or I need to go hunt and bring my own food. But I mean, think about it. Where can I find me? I mean, there's squirrels out there, but I mean, to find me deer, I mean, I don't think there's enough deer out there for every person here.
Yeah.
You'd have to think that in Madera County, there's 160,000 in population. You'd have to knock out quite a few deer to feed everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the chains, the supply chain that we have today. I mean, it's just funny how that continuously goes through these whole pandemics and what have you. We still have the Costco's. We still have these big stores that provide us some type of safety.
Yeah.
I guess we haven't been there, but we look at this as the apocalypse. Like it's the end of the world, and we need to arm ourselves because if it comes down to it, I'm going to be the one that's going to hit that deer. Yeah. You have no training whatsoever, but you're going to bring a deer.
Yeah. Well, not just that, and I think that's kind of, again, going back to the misconception is, okay, so you get the gun, you found the deer, you shot the deer, and you killed it. Do you know how to skin it and clean it and cook it?
There you go.
And you know, so that, I mean, and that's a whole.
In movies, I mean, they do it all in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah. No, I know that was one of my customers who came in and, you know, during COVID, they were talking, pig hunting it's big. I don't know if you know, the wild pigs are like rampant. It's like basically worse than the squirrels.
Yes.
They're more than happy that you kill them. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like to me, like shooting a squirrel or shooting a wild pig that's destroying farmland, it's like I'm doing something good, right? I'll go help out. And then he started getting into and then we cut it on there and we cut the butt out. And I'm just like, okay, you lost me there. Like I'm not going to go shoot this thing and skin it. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to go, you know, because I'm there to alleviate the problem, not go now cut this thing up and start eating it, you know.
And some folks they see it that way. Other you know, they like to mount the wild boar's head. I mean, everybody has a reason to go hunt, right? Some do it for food preservations, others do it because they want to have this huge buck or this wild boar somewhere mounted on their office or their home, and to every one of those, I mean, that's the liberties that we have here in America, right? But for me personally, I haven't had the need to do that, but something behind me says, hey, maybe you should go out there and see what it takes to knock a deer out, right? But then I say, well, that poor deer, I probably am going to kill it. And then I'm probably going to skin it, and I hope to eat it, but I'm not going to eat it because I'm hungry. I'm going to eat it because I want to explore that part of that part of me that says, hey, maybe you need to learn how to do this, but at what cost, right? Yeah. We do have food, and some may say, well, I mean, there's nothing like venison. Venison is probably the healthiest food that you can have, and some folks may argue that, and I don't disagree with that. It's just that I haven't acquired that taste, and I haven't come to that need to want to go there and try venison. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's I get it, and for those that are in the sport, I mean, this isn't. I'm not throwing a rock at you. I'm just saying, in general, I mean, you do it for a reason, and that's the topic of this show today. Is do we need firearms in our society? And I highlighted hobby, protection, right, or food preservation, right? And in your case, Rohi, you sell them. What would you say is the need? I mean, you're probably there to say, well, I cater to all needs, right? But what would be your personal?
I mean. And I think that's kind of the beauty of what happened through the cycle of like COVID and stuff is that, you know, when it hit, the majority of the buying was food preservation or just preservation of self. Like it was like, I need to protect me from the apocalypse that's coming. But out of that, a good, 60-70% easily, they stuck to it and they picked up the hobby, the recreational side. Because again, there were people that literally, bought them, they stuck them underneath their bed, never even touched them, 4 years later, they came out of the hole and figured like the world's not ending, and they brought me brand new guns that they just wanted to sell and get their money back on. So there was a good, small section of those people, but the larger portion dove in, bought maybe a second gun, realizing that the one they first bought maybe wasn't right. They bought maybe a rifle, they bought a shotgun. Like they started understanding that, there's more to this than just, having something to hug on to when you're feeling scared. Now, I would say it's still the majority of people they're buying with the mindset of recreation. and not buying saying like, I want this bullet because it does this much damage if it hits a human person. They're thinking like, no, I want to be able to shoot a piece of paper or whatever and just have fun, And I think that's kind of the driving force for one, to keep the industry alive. But it also kind of tells us, when you're saying like gun people just want to kill people. No, they don't. Like they're really out there. Some people pick up hunting. I would say hunting in our area, I won't say it's a dying thing, but it definitely is a very niche group where I would say maybe 10, 15 years ago, that was probably more the priority of buying. People were buying hunting rifles, going hunting, that's kind of died out quite a bit. And I don't know if it's because, like you were saying, like scarcity. Like I hear a lot of guys, they go deer hunting, and they don't get nothing because there really isn't that much out there.
Well, there's a lottery now, and
Yeah.
for you to have the right to hunt a deer, you have to apply for a certain area, and you hope that you would get selected so you can get out there and hunt, and then you hope that you find the right size buck so you can bring him back. And I'm sure there are a lot of restrictions here because we also want to preserve wildlife, and that's why Fish and Game they try to do what they can, take these measures to preserve wildlife. But I haven't gone through all that, Rohi, and sometimes I feel like, well, my son's coming up of age, and it would be a great deal. We do the dove hunt, right? And we do.
But how's that? I hear I hear the dove populations. It's dwindling in
It
certain areas.
is, and for us, it was mainly a gathering of family. And again, after the dove hunt, we would do we'd prepare them in a way where we would eat them. We would eat them. We wouldn't just sit there and knock them down. But now, like I told you, I think over the years you start realizing, well, I don't know, man. Today I just don't feel it anymore. I just don't have that excitement to want to get out there. And the fact that you're alert, looking at these doves going through, and you're having to shoot them while they're in the air, that's the game. That's part of it, is that I got one. I got two. And then you get your limit, then that's even great. So, I do like that sense of the sport, right? And obviously it requires a firearm. This is a 12 gauge, a 20 gauge, or to some, people can use a 16 gauge. But for me, obviously the preferred is a 12 gauge. But it's great because, again, my brothers, my son, we get out there, have a good time. It's bonding. Whether we kill something or not, we shot at something, right? And now, there's restrictions on the type of shells. You can't use lead. So now you got to buy a bit more expensive steel. So things do change, and sometimes that can get in the way of saying, I'm not going to go through the hassle. There's never. It used to be where you can find shells in Walmart, all these places, and you can get them for a pretty good cheap price, so more people would want to go. Now it's like restricted sometimes, and then you have to the back orders, and if you don't get them in time, then they're steel. And like, you know what? Maybe it's just not there anymore. That enthusiasm, especially right after COVID, I think people started noticing, wow, to try to get to that sport, it became more of a pain in the ass trying to get all that stuff ready. But again, and the Fish and Game, obviously you're going to pay for your license every year. There's a cost to that, so it's not something that you can just grab and say, I'm going to go hunting. You have to pay for your license. You have to buy your shells. You have to buy any equipment.
Well, not like that. I know, now the biggest thing is hunter safety. I've had a lot of guys asking me, because we do the instruction. Hey, we want to get our hunting license. How do we do it? And it's like, we got to find somebody, and there's nobody that that even really teaches the class anymore. So. Just like you're saying, the barriers to getting into it. If I decide today, hey, you know what, I think I want to get a hunting license. Good luck. You got to find somebody, and you got to try and find a class. And
now they're becoming more virtual or remote classes, and that's how my son. There was a class for him, and he learned quite a bit. Which I thought was great. He taught me a couple things, or refreshed my memory a bit. But and we talk about the hunting aspect of it. Now we're talking about the protection, and this is where I think more folks that do have a conceal carry, then they'll tell you why they went that route, and they went through the class. And I see them out at the class, and when you look at them, you said, hey, these folks aren't out there really to try to cause harm. They're out there to really just preserve that right and have that as a protection. But others may see it as, well, why do we need guns? Is there an alternative there that we can make our community safer without any gun violence?
Yeah, and I think that's the difficult. I mean, again, like you're saying, if I have a class of like, let's say 20 people, yeah, there may be that one person that is a little too gun happy, that is the one usually spitting out I got 3 people attacking my wife and I'm going to shoot them. It's like, so that you got one of those. Most of them understand that, like, look, if you look at the stats, you're almost guaranteed to never use that thing in your entire life for self-defense. I mean, the numbers are pretty staggering, because it's not really there, but there's still a percentage. There's still, like, it does happen, So I think it's more just, again, going back to I'd rather have it than not have it kind of mentality was what really kind of drives the class. And the majority of the people understand that they don't feel there's they call it a force multiplier, in just the sense that I'm a smaller guy, I don't work out, I'm not huge and built, and even that, if there was more than one person, I still don't think I would be able to by myself do something to prevent somebody from, like you said, hurting me or hurting my family. So firearms are always thought of, or the term is always used as a force multiplier, because no matter your stature, a gun will do much more damage than you as an individual. I think that's kind of what it is. The problem with saying an alternative to that, there really is no alternative. I mean, besides holding or walking around like a baseball bat, and even then, that still has very, a lot of limitations. Like, you got range limitations. You have, now I can only hit one person, and the other guy could be taking me on, and then if he takes it from me, then I've kind of lost it. So there's a lot of things that say it's got to be a gun or something of that nature, And even guns themselves get tricky because, we're so used to what a gun is, which is it's a fine thing that's shooting a lead projectile of a random size, and that's kind of what's doing everything. Well, what about when we start getting to, like, lasers and all these, like, new technology that may come out? Is that going to be okay? Are we going to say, well, you can have a laser gun because that wasn't in the Constitution,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, like, things about what can I protect myself with,
And when people rely on government, I mean, that's where it gets a little tricky, is because in many cases nowadays, it looks like government has more overreach now than what the intention was, right?
Sure.
I mean, obviously, when this Constitution was created, it was created with limited powers for government. Right?
Yeah.
United States have their own, but as you start overlooking a huge population and with variables, right? I mean, because there's folks out there that, frankly, just their mental state probably isn't there, and they feel like, well, I need to harm somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And others may be because of their upbringing. It could be, I've been living in a very violent environment.
Yeah.
That, obviously crime is huge, so that's all we know how to do. And when government gets involved, this is why your police is. You look back at the police back then, when they had a club, and a whistle, right?
Yeah.
You go back to England. Some of that was brought here, and that was the case. And as we started exploring the West, then rifles became a big deal. You talk about the Wild Wild West, the mining, and people protecting themselves from wild beasts. Or at that time, it wasn't even that. Against people, against humans. And wars have taught us something, is that, hey, on the other end, if you're hit by one of those projectiles, it's going to leave a pretty damaging effect. So we know what guns can do.
Yeah.
So is there an alternative way of mitigating the use of a firearm through government, and government utilizing maybe the latest technology, AI? I've noticed that there's these, like, dogs robots that are walking through. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, they look pretty weird, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is this the next phase in trying to alleviate the situation when it comes to social order?
I would agree with you if the robot was for personal protection. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, whether it be a robot dog or a robot humanoid that's walking behind me and is strong enough to protect me against an oncoming battle, then sure, you know, maybe that is the next wave of self-protection when you say no guns, you know. But
Well, look-
because you need a bodyguard. I mean,
Yeah.
that's essentially what you're asking for is I
Well-
need muscle to protect me from other potential muscle. And if you can't afford to pay 4 guys to just walk around you, then maybe I can buy a Amazon robot for, you know, $5,000 and I charge it up and it follows me around all day, you know.
Well, that may be soon, Rohin. The reason why I say that is because a lot of the high-end weaponry that you see, or even some of the technology that we have, is all tested in military battles, right? And we're starting to see that even in these military wars now, sanctions, it's money. It's driven by monetary. But these wars that do have humans out there, they're utilizing weapons like drones.
Yeah.
They're using high-end weaponry, missiles, rockets, whatever they can. They're trying to avoid casualties. At least that's what they say. They're targeting certain areas where they want to concentrate on that specific group of people and what have you. I mean, to me, it's BS because there's going to be civilian casualties if you're doing it in a city that's urban and there's folks around there. But that's the cost of trying to get to that target. Now, that being said, you're hearing that in these wars that are taking place, like Ukraine and Russia, they're expanding their drones and they're utilizing these drones to go after certain targets, sometimes without having to kill many folks. I think they're going after specific strategic targets, whether they're nuclear sites, whether they're anything, railroad or anything that provides them an advantage.
Yeah.
You saw this in Iran, you know, they used that to their nuclear center. So I think there's ways of controlling things, especially with the technology. We just won't see them unveil until later years and say, hey, maybe this is something a city can use, or maybe something that a state can use to help control and put order. And that sucks to think like that, but that's kind of the way I feel that these governments evolve to.
Yeah. No, and again, it's, you know, it's funny because I think it was last week, the article, and it's always propaganda, I always say, but like the article already popped up about 2035 is the expected date of civil war in the United States. And it's starting with California, by the way. So you know, somebody's already starting to drive that engine of like, we're getting to the end, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sad to think that way, but again, history, because I know you're a history buff, will teach you. Every society goes through a major revolution at some point. Like, it has to. It's a natural process. Being the United States hasn't gone through one for quite a while now, that's where experts are saying it's about time. We're about due. And unfortunately, with what we're seeing, I think with like some of the LA riots and stuff that happened, just like that's maybe what they're using as the spark to say that, but it's already being planted to say, look, 2035, we may start seeing the revolution begin.
Well, you heard it here at the Weekly Junction. So. And, it's funny because, I mean, we're talking about guns, right? But we just got through a big event here at the at our city here. And by the way, you may see logos of the Nike or even the city. Please know, disclaimer, this in no way has any weight on any of the organizations and or logos that you see. We don't speak on behalf of them. We're speaking on behalf of our own opinion. So anyhow, we saw the fireworks spectacular, great show. But at the same time, there was multiple shows going at the same time, which I thought was like, wow, it sounds like a war zone out there, right? So I'm listening to or reading an article through Fresno. I think they're going to start deploying drones, right? And the reason why drones will become very useful is because they'll be able to spot where exactly are these illegal fireworks and or coming from, and then cite them, right? And obviously, I think with fines, who wants to be fined? Who wants to get caught? There was a time where there was a thrill about just letting go of this M80 or this M1000, right? but you always wanted to do it where you thought you were going to get in trouble. A lot of times these were in these rural areas. I went out there, lit one up, and I just wanted to see what the effect was. That
Yeah.
thrill of knowing, boom, and after that, okay, I got I got what I needed, and that's not something I want to be messing around with, because then, obviously you play with that.
Yeah.
You play with fire, you're going to get burned. But this past week on the 4th of July, man, it seemed like the days leading to the 4th of July and the days after, I mean, it was like a war zone. So
Yeah.
again, going back to the technology, I know we're talking about guns, but I'm thinking now you equip your police department with possibly these drones that can fly over, I mean, and
Yeah.
maybe spot, do some work, identify, facial recognition. I mean, think about all these things that are out there, Rohi, that can certainly pinpoint and stop some of these illegal fireworks. Why wouldn't they do that? With
I would say, see, and that's where being in the industry I am and not, it's I have a totally different viewpoint. I would say let them have them, but how does California monopolize on what people want, which is aerial fireworks? Okay, well, you have to take a class and get a license, right? I mean, I have to do that to buy a gun. Why don't you just make me have to take, like a fireworks safety course, and I get a little certificate that tells me how to aim and how to be safe and what not to do. Okay, there's step one. And then step two, make them buy insurance. Maybe it's a $500,000 insurance thing you have to get to be able to light those off, but give them some way to legitimize it and then monopolize on it, right? Because now you're taking in money. These people have to have these things.
but you have to hire
You do,
firefighter,
but I'm saying,
right? I mean,
well,
what you're saying is
whoever.
fire marshal to be able to, because you really can't, outside of what the legal, limit on how far up they can go.
Sure.
I mean, you're going to want to expand on territory that may potentially cause fires, and we did have some fires. So if you're
But
going
that's what I'm
to,
saying. But if the concern and in that you're saying the right word, the fires and the destruction because of the misuse. But if that's the concern, and you have, I don't know how many people would even qualify or be able to legally apply, right? But if you have these people buying insurance policies and they blow up the house or catch it on fire, you're covered. There's no loss, right? Like that's the whole point of legitimizing and giving them that out, is to say, like, look, we want what we want, right? I mean, we want guns. Everybody wants guns. California just says you have these steps to walk through. It's obvious that people want fireworks, and by banning them, you just make a black market to them. If you would just do, again, think about marijuana. Everybody wanted marijuana. You legalize it, and now everybody could care less. I mean, it's whatever, big deal. But if you legitimize it and you say, look, you don't have to drive to Arizona and sneak it in and worry about getting caught or buy it from some dude on the black. No, here's a stand. Just show them your license, show them your insurance policy, and you can buy it. And we get the sales tax from it, and we get all these like benefits from it. And then, by the way, if you go shoot it and you didn't follow policy and you catch the guy's house on fire behind you, well, guess what? You got an insurance policy. It's coming out of your pocket.
here's
now,
something better yet. I think that if you can do all that, but you want to come bring it to a controlled area, fire them there. Fire them.
Yes.
Come on.
Well, of course.
I don't.
But that could be. But I'm
yeah.
saying. But that's where you can say things like, but exactly what you're saying. Like, okay, you can't shoot them in a residential block, right? You give them the means that says, okay, you want to shoot them off. Well, you need to find an area far enough away. You start, but you give them that opportunity.
I give you a perfect example. You have this race car. You just can't.
Yeah.
You can't race it down a residential deal because you don't have the adequate space
Correct.
to see what the performance of that vehicle is. But if you take it out to the speedway, to the racetrack, you pay a little fine. You build up your car however you want, and you let it ride until it ends. I mean, there's a noise ordinance that you have to do it between these times, but you get to do it in the controlled area.
Correct.
And you get that out of your system if that's what it is. And I think it's the same thing with fireworks. I think giving them the opportunity, again, going through this process, filing the permits, and I get the black market. People are not going to stop that, but I think that once you introduce some type of heavy citation and fine, you let them know warning ahead of time, because people seem to think that, well, why didn't you give them one?
Yeah.
Well, because you were the one that was caught, and here's the footage.
But that's always the frustration. You said the right thing, is the citation. And I remember, I mean, I haven't looked at it this year. I know they said that they made it a lot worse. But I remember looking at it, the Fresno Bee, when they would put out the article about the citations, and it was like, if you were caught with like, a small bundle, it was like $500. And it wasn't until you had a U-Haul truck that it was like $10,000. Well, some guys will be like, I'll pay $10,000. Who cares? Let me shoot. I'm going to shoot them.
Yeah.
If it was truly about their evil and their bad, you have one M80, it's a $10,000 fine.
Yeah.
Make it. Like, why are we so scared?
Yeah.
If that's what we're really after, to say, no, you had it, it, boom, here's your ticket, But I know they said it. They said now they're hefty fines, and I think we gave away 21 in Madera, but it seemed like a joke when it was like, oh no, unless you were like selling them and you had this giant truck full of them, that's when the fines got to like $10,000 and $20,000.
Yeah, and that wraps around to the technology again.
Yeah.
Going back to the main theme is, are there ways to try to control the use of firearms, especially when utilized in a violent way? I think that's, if you can take that away, then obviously guns would be there for the protection. Obviously, the Second Amendment gives you that right to protect against any insurrections or maybe any government tyranny, right?
It's called self-preservation.
Yes, well, let's call it that. But anyhow, your thoughts, your comments. I mean, this is a topic that we cover at least once or twice a year. We like to make sure that we keep it interesting, but at the same time, we try to put content out there that may be of your interest. If you're looking for a gun or classes and getting your CCW, come see Rohi, Sachs Security and Sachs Guns. I'm sure he can guide you through the process in identifying the correct gun, but also walking you through whether or not you need one. And although he's a salesman, he'll tell you whether you need one or not. Maybe you're better off with the slingshot. Who knows? But he sells those too, right? Well, with that, Rohi, anything else you want to leave our audience with?
No, again, I would say get educated, and it's a good time to get in. I think a lot of people are curious, and I would say it's definitely come down and see us. Let's talk.
Yeah, and I will leave you with this. Prior to having this thought of wanting to have a gun, I went through the process of really just taking the class, educating myself and understanding, because there's always that fear that you may use it. Yes, I see a lot of movies. Yes, I see a lot of video games, and a lot of times there's no consequences behind the video games. It's a thrill. It's an action-packed. You're getting juiced up and shooting the enemy that's not human, but it's very shaped like the human. It looks like a human. You're desensitized. But out in the real world, I think that's a little different. And when and how to operate it, I think it's important to recognize that. So taking that class really gave me a different perspective and really understanding how important it is to get educated and really understand whether or not maybe the gun is right for you or not. I mean, why did I get it in the first place? You may walk in there wanting to get a gun, but after you take the class, you may think twice and say, well, I think I can do a better job by maybe having a taser or maybe having some pepper spray because I haven't seen any harm come my way yet. I'm just thinking that I'm in harm's way because everybody else is telling me that. Right. And this is where you kind of get that thought out of the way. Yeah. Anyways, again, that was our show today. If you have any comments, feel free to like, share, subscribe. We'd like to hear from you. If any of you guys are gun enthusiasts out there, let us know your thoughts. Tell us what you think. Other than that, Rohi, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.